Hey, Hugh Taylor here, and today I'm going to talk about how to write a book press release. This is a type of work I've done many times and I get asked about a lot. And it's an important part of the publishing process, announcing a book. It's also one that can be challenging, especially if you're the author and you have to write a press release for your own book. Because you've just spent, however many long months or years writing a book. And then you have to write a summary of it, which is often painful. And then you have to write a press release, which is even more painful because you have to talk about your book objectively in the third person. So here are some tips on how to write a book press release. My standard disclaimer applies. This is just a suggestion, a set of suggestions. There are different ways to do it, many different approaches. This is one that has worked for authors that I've worked with. There is a template that you can download for free in the link below, that if you want to have something to start from working on yourself. In the meantime, let's get started with the book press release ground rules that I like to discuss in advance. A book press release needs to clearly announce the book's title, author, and subject. You have to have in your mind what I call the 3-second rule. Like if you're just glancing at a website that's announcing new books, that someone could very quickly know your book's title, who wrote it, and what it's about. This is then followed up with a lead paragraph, the LEDE, lead, as we say in public relations, this odd spelling. The lead paragraph has an easy to understand message about your book. It fleshes out the title. Again, I would call this the 30-second rule. If someone just reads that first paragraph, they'll come away knowing what the book is about, and hopefully have some interest in it, maybe want to buy it, or at least read it. Then the press release, as always, should be in the third person, objective writing. Although this might be your book or something that you've published as a publisher, you have to write about it in an objective third person voice. That means he, it, they, not I, me, our, and you. Okay? You got to avoid overt selling and hyperbole. This is challenging because obviously people buy books when they're excited about them, and you want people to be excited about the book, but there's a balance you have to strike, and that means being a positive or trying to convey excitement without overdoing it. And we'll give some examples of that. You got to answer the question, why should I read this book? Implicitly answer that question. Include reader reactions if you have them, and this is something people struggle with because well, the book hasn't come out yet, so how can I have reader reactions? Well, there are ways to get book reviews, pre-publication reviews, and you can include those. That's a helpful thing to have. Of course, have how and where to buy the book information. The press release should link to a bookstore like Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Okay, and don't try to be a book review. Someone else, the purpose will do that. The purpose of the press release is to get someone to write a book review. Okay, now this leads to this structure of the book press release. There's a lot of components to an effective book press release. And I've chosen a book press release I did earlier in the year for this unusual book called Judenrein, or I think it's pronounced Judenrein, which is a kind of a slightly paranoid dystopian thriller about how white supremacists are going to take over the United States and harm all the Jews. So it's this may not be for everybody, but it's a book that we wrote a press release for. Really, it's in the thriller category, but in the sort of subgenre of Jewish fiction. Anyway, it's a good example because it has in it all the components that you need in a book press release. Starting with the headline. The headline identifies the title right away, okay? And then it identifies the genre. So it says Judenrein, a Jewish dystopian thriller. Let's say that's a subgenre. And then a little bit about what the book is. Issues a stark warning of rising American anti-Semitism. So in half a dozen words, in 1 or 2 seconds, you quickly know what this book is about. Then the subhead fleshes it out, has the author's name, new book by Harold Benjamin, envisions the fate of America's Jews as white supremacists seize the reins of power. So with the head and the subhead, you pretty much understand what you're getting. You know who wrote it. Now, in this case, this author is unknown, so it doesn't really matter. But people are often looking for certain authors, so that's an important thing to emphasize. Or if you're trying to build an author brand, you want to emphasize who wrote the book. Like all press releases, we have a date line, which is city, and in the case of New York, you don't have to say what state it is in. According to AP rules, just say New York. You don't have to say New York, New York. The date, April 29th. And then the way this is framed is this is published by a small publishing company called Intrados Publishing. So we're framing the announcement as the publisher is announcing the publication of the book. If it's a self-published book, you would probably say that the author has published the book or the author has released the book. If you don't want to say that you publish it yourself, you can say the author has released this book. And again, it repeats this very quickly, the title, the genre, the author. Okay, quick, get all that out. Then it gets into a little bit of a description of what the book is about in terms of the book's theme and how the book works using suspense to convey a stark warning based on rising anti-Semitism. Then we go directly to an author quote. Or rather, a publisher spokesperson quote. And the quote is an opportunity to be more subjective and more personal and maybe a little more hypey because you're quoting someone. The press release, if this press release is objective, the quote can be more subjective. And this talks about how the book is kind of a suspenseful adventure and with a compelling, flawed hero who fights to save the day. And now from there, the rest of the press release is the next three paragraphs are background and summary of the book. It talks about what the title means. Then we have here, these two paragraphs are a plot summary. And this is obviously up to your individual taste, but if you're trying to sell the book, this is kind of like the back jacket copy, maybe not exactly, but similar. You're trying to get people intrigued by the idea of the book. What's it about? You have to give enough information to get people interested without spoiling it, right? And in this case, what we tried to do was create some interest around this main character of the book, who's this kind of unusual guy with a checkered past, who has to go on this, reluctantly go on this mission where, he could get killed or whatever. So it's just trying to pull people in and give them a little flavor of what the book is about. Then we have here readers' reactions, and this was done, I think the publisher used NetGalley, which is a service where you can get people to review a book before it's officially out. There's a number of such places. If nothing else, ask friends and family. So it has some quotes. Couldn't put it down. This was fast-paced, quick thriller, complicated hero. Just trying to validate that this is a worthwhile book to read. And then the second to last thing we have is this about the publisher and or about the author. This is where you can have some just factual information, about who published this book and who wrote this book. And just depending on we just had very briefly, but here you might want to have more detail. And then how and where to buy. Okay, that's important because you want people to buy the book, right? In this case, we would click to ebook link and paperback books, and then for more information, click on the book website. So these are some thoughts on how to write a book press release. There's a free template for a press release at the link below. We'd love to work with you on author press releases. We do it all the time. And I wish you the best of luck in all your publishing, publicity endeavors. Thank you.